I think like my experience with sort of trying meditation and it felt like something to add on to my list of things to do.
Yeah.
My experience with that was when I had breast cancer when I was 28, and lots of people had lots of advice about how to survive cancer. And I was grateful for, most of it. And so there was lots coming up about meditation and mindfulness, and it made cognitive sense to me.
Yeah.
But I really struggled with it. I really struggled with it. And then I felt like I was failing, and then I would die because I hadn't succeeded in meditation. And for me, it wasn't until I did the forest bathing training really and had these guided experience that forced me to stop um, and actually connect in a sensory way with nature. That was the first time I actually felt like I could stop and be calm. And then I was like, oh, I think I get it. I think I get where I was trying to get to 20 years ago. For me, that's also the power of a guided experience. Like a lot of people, obviously, lots of people enjoy being outside.
You're listening to the Brave OT podcast with me, Carlin Neek. This podcast is all about empowering occupational therapists to step up, level up, blaze some trails, and maybe engage in a little conscious rebellion in service of our profession, our clients, our work, our businesses, and living our mission wholeheartedly. We are all about keeping it real, doing hard things, unhustling, being curious, exploring, growing through our challenges, and finding joy, fulfillment, and vitality as we do so. Really, we're OTing ourselves and each other. I hope you love this episode. I couldn't wait to have Bronwyn on the podcast. She's definitely a big support in my career and in my life, and I so appreciate her. And I really want to meet her in person one day. We've spent many hours online together. We speak in each other's communities. We support each other as OTs, as business owners, but mostly as humans. So in this discussion, you're going to learn about our shared perspective on work-life balance. Spoiler alert, we're not a fan of the term. How we partner with nature personally and professionally. And I think my favorite part of the conversation is the discussion about community and the impact of connection, collaboration, and conversation for both of our practices, though we're on opposite sides of the world. Bronwyn has a beautiful way, like many of the guests I've had the privilege to have on the Brave OT podcast. She has a beautiful way of showing up fully and authentically real. So without further ado, here's Bronwyn Paynter from Australia, the owner of Nature OT. Hi, Bronwyn. Thank you so
Hi,
much for
guys.
coming.
Thank you. Coming to my office.
Coming to my office on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, and I think we probably had our first conversation 2 years ago, at least, maybe 3. I don't know, 2.
I don't remember, like, all this feels a blur sometimes.
I think it was when you were interviewing OTs to start your first kind of beta run
Oh,
of your nature program.
really? Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I've still got that spreadsheet. I talked to 100 OTs in 3 months or something. I used to go walking and just talk on my headphones and just ask questions about nature and what was important to them and what they were doing in their work. And I loved it. I loved that ability to connect with people all over the world. And I loved getting a sense of the core of OT, the fact that like we are all over the place in so many systems and countries, and actually still, I found it really affirming that still we're all talking about the same things about people and their everyday lives and what matters. So, yeah, it was really exciting.
I love that. Love that. I know
Mm.
in a coaching program that I took to learn how to create my online program, Activate Vitality, she started later on, not when I first started, but she started telling people that they needed to interview 50 of their ideal client to
Yeah.
really get a sense of what are they looking for? What are they talking about? We often assume we know
Mm.
people are looking for, but there's so much gold in having repeating conversations with many people. So it's not just this, you need a big sample size to get good data, right?
Yeah, I think that's so true. And it's that co-creation process. There's no point creating something that I think, I mean, I know a lot and I've read a lot, but I'm just one person. And it's the same You and I work with OTs, but it's just, I think it's the same. Obviously, it's the same with programs and services we're developing for clients. And I love seeing so much more consumer representation and like even at conferences, like peer group presentations about really partnering with a provider to create something that matters and that works and that's relevant. That's a whole different process.
Yeah.
Even in the workplace, I feel like we're on a tangent already, but even in the workplace, I've been looking at our wellbeing program in the job that I have. And I've just started by asking people, what does well mean? You know, in our business, what does well look like? Because our business hashtag is now be well, which is perfect. But what that looks like is not, let's have an exercise program or lunchtime yoga. What that
No.
looks like is adequate resourcing, adequate staffing, systems that work, feedback, relationship with managers. It's not, I'm not an OT in wellbeing who does, yeah, like let's have a cooking session or something. No,
No, it's
healthy
so
eating.
true.
Like all that matters, but it's not what matters the most often.
Yes. I was in the UK for an OT retreat in September, and I think we've talked about that before, and, from there, I was asked to provide a recording to use as a keynote for an event that was being held. Actually, I was a keynote at 2 a.m. my time while
Oh,
I was asleep on this past Friday. And
oh wow.
and it was for like sort of a special interest group, a working group of OTs who all work in OT in the workplace and providing supports in human resources and
Oh,
return
that's
to
so
work and
interesting.
well-being. And yeah, it
Oh,
was
they're my
really interesting.
people.
I know. On still another part of the world from both of us. And
Mm,
they asked me to speak about self-care. And I kind of groaned inside, like that little bit of, "Ugh, I know self-care is important, but people are tired of hearing about it." And I thought, well, this keynote. So it's supposed to kind of change your thinking and inspire a little bit more than
yeah.
educate. And
Yep.
every person who was going to be in that education day knew all about self care. So, what could I do to inspire a little bit of different thinking?
Mm,
And I chose to come at it from the angle of self compassion and self worth first. And
mm,
so, from a place of valuing ourselves as a resource, we need to fill ourselves first rather than,
mm.
oh, if I have a little bit of time, then I could probably add to that long list of to dos.
Yeah.
Call that
Yeah.
self care,
Yeah.
checkbox self care.
Yeah, add something else on. Self-care becomes something more to do. Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
Mm,
Exactly. And if you flip
mm,
that around and go, these are the resources I require in order to do
mm.
well, in order to function, I have to do these things. They're necessary, not an add on.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can't do the things that you're there to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what you do. I know you've got a few different hats.
I do a variety of things, and I wanna say that's okay.
It's
I
excellent. It's how you roll. I love it.
It is. I have a job. I have a job that now is 3 days a week. I work for a community pharmacy organisation where I've worked on and off for almost 9 years. And, so I've kind of stepped back from doing everything, which feels such a relief. So now my role is manager of work health safety programs and wellbeing programs. I have stepped back a little bit from the day-to-day reactive work of managing incidents, managing injuries in the workplace, and am focusing on specific risk. So I have been deep in COVID since the beginning of COVID. And now I'm like, oh, most of that's gone from my role because it just doesn't, there's a lot less regulation. So that's given me space and a little bit of recovery from like really, I would say I was absolutely in classic burnout in that role. So now I'm kind of like feeling a bit more energized to go back to looking at well-being and to look at some of our key risks in that industry in retail, forward-facing retail, customer aggression, violence in the workplace,
Wow.
managing difficult conversations. Most of it's lovely, but we are the front line of healthcare in a struggling healthcare system. So that's my work that I have done for 30 years. And that's one thing. And then really my absolute passion work is my nature-based work. So it is working with occupational therapists all around the world to help them incorporate more nature into their work and lives. And in Adelaide, where I am in South Australia, it's providing in-person experiences. I am continually evolving that. So I've trained in forest bathing or forest therapy as a particular modality. And I position that in the well-being space, absolutely as occupational therapy in scope of practice, in providing what I call a well-being occupation. And I talk about it, it's like going to yoga. People go to a yoga class with an intention of a well-being outcome on lots of levels: physical, spiritual, psychological, social. And forest bathing is the same. It's like you go with an intention and expectation that it will impact your well-being in some way. And there's a lot of evidence that it does. So I position that as a well-being occupation, and I am positioning it in wellness tourism at the moment. That's something I've kind of been really looking to push into in the last 12 months. And I do it for, I mean, we can talk about this, but we've done some sessions at the zoo, at our safari park, at some beautiful historic nature as a tourism scene. I provide sessions for corporate groups, so workplace teams, which I love. And as part of our festivals, so we in Adelaide have a nature festival in South Australia every October, and this year there was a wellness festival. And so I really look for those opportunities to show up and provide what I do, but absolutely shout from the rooftops that it's occupational therapy, and that occupational therapy doesn't just sit in a clinical like health system, really. I've never been in the health system. They're my things. So I have a job that gives me security and certainty and reliable income and a sense of being part of something bigger than just what I'm creating.
Yeah.
And I have my business with OTs and my in-person things.
Outside. Oh, I love, love, love that. I know I took on a lot of plants probably in 2018. I started gathering plants. They're everywhere. And I noticed there was a time where I was meditating every morning, and then a time where meditation wasn't working for me in the morning. It
Mm,
just was like it was feeling misaligned. But I
mm,
started repotting plants and
mm.
fertilizing plants and trimming plants and moving them about and
Tending.
yes, and I
Yeah.
recognized how that was doing for my nervous system, what
Mm,
meditation had. And
mm,
I was aware of it. I love forest bathing too. And I was aware, but hadn't put it together until it was after a period of time of just going toward what I was drawn to. And then went, oh, of
mm.
course, this is serving the exact purpose that I needed it to.
Yes. It's so interesting, isn't it, when you kind of follow your intuition to let it draw you towards things as opposed to moving away from something. I think like my experience with sort of trying meditation and it felt like something to add on to my list of things to do.
Yeah.
My experience with that was when I had breast cancer when I was 28, and lots of people had lots of advice about how to survive cancer. And I was grateful for, most of it. I was like, and so there was lots coming up about meditation and mindfulness, and it made cognitive sense to me.
Yeah.
But I really struggled with it. I really struggled with it. And then I felt like I was failing, and then I would die because I hadn't succeeded in meditation. And for me, it wasn't until I did the forest bathing training really and had these guided experience that forced me to stop and actually connect in a sensory way with nature. That was the first time I actually felt like I could stop and be calm. And then I was like, oh, I think I get it. I think I get where I was trying to get to 20 years ago. And that's, for me, that's also the power of a guided experience. Like a lot of people, obviously, lots of people enjoy being outside. I think that's the value that we can add in actually guiding someone's experience, because it is very hard for people to slow down. And there's also that element of giving permission that this is okay. It's okay to stop. I've run forest bathing sessions for burnt out health professionals, and people come and just cry, and then we just lie on a tree and talk about it. And that's the thing, when you're sort of in that space and calmed and your sympathetic nervous system is not like, um, you have better conversations too. People are really open and vulnerable, and it's really lovely. So it's nice to facilitate those kind of experiences.
That's been
Mm,
my experience with getting clients outdoors and just I often
mm,
was taking clients for walks because they needed a little bit of structure to get moving, get out of their houses.
yeah,
And for my clients with depression who had been quite isolated, and
yeah.
I noticed that there was sort of this we could be so stuck when we were sitting face to face and go for a walk and things just they open up and unravel and I was like, "Oh, that felt great." And often I would walk with them by the river. And that's when I started to do a bit of research and go, okay, what is this? There's
Yeah.
bilateral movement, there's
Yeah.
nature, there's being
All
outdoors,
the
there's
yeah.
exercise, there's so many, but side to
Yeah.
side too is a big thing.
Yeah, it's that thing about how you can't talk to your teenagers.
Exactly.
Like driving in the car is like a great place to talk. Yeah, it's I had a client who had these dogs, right? I'm scared of dogs. And for a range of valid reasons. And I had this client and he had these two like big Rottweilers and I was going to be working with him a lot, like 3 sessions a week in his home because he
Oh,
hadn't left his home. And my manager set this thing up that I would come to the house as long as the dogs are in their crates. He had these crates inside, and I was like, "Oh, thank you, but like I'm sure that's not how this person wants their dogs to be." And so eventually we sort of came to this agreement that he would help me with my fear of the dogs, and I would help him with all the other things.
yeah.
And I mean, like if we're talking about bravery, this was really uncomfortable for me. And so we did get to a point where the dogs were like free in the house and we walked the dogs. That's kind of the routine we got into. We've walked the dogs and then we came back and pruned the rose bushes and yeah, there's so many layers to it, aren't there? All those things, all those kind of aspects of being outside. And I think being physically like moving your body,
Absolutely.
that there's so much evidence for. And I love the evidence. I could just live in academia, I think, and read for the rest of my life and write and research, but that doesn't really create change for me. So, we don't need a whole heap of evidence to do something like that.
No,
Kind of it's practice based evidence as well as evidence based practice. So,
I
that's
think
our clinical reasoning.
I think we tend to, after a few years of being OTs, have an intuition around, okay,
Yeah.
like, what does this person need? What are
Yeah.
they working toward? What are things they enjoy? What are things they used to do? And we start to go through almost like an algorithm mentally that we're not
Yes.
even conscious of, right? And you go,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, let's go for a walk and prune the rose bushes.
Yeah.
And then when you break it down afterward, you can do all sorts of activity analysis
Yeah.
to explain why
Yeah.
that was excellent. But there's an
Yeah.
intuition that kind of
Yeah.
went into that that's well educated and well informed
Yeah.
and following the client's lead. And
Yeah, exactly. I agree. And I'm glad you said about activity analysis because to me, like I feel like I've been talking about, I sort of like created this term, here we go, like nature OT. Got this from my son. So I've been talking about nature OT, but then in the last few months, I feel like I'm sort of unraveling that and saying it's just OT, not just, it is. It is OT. Um, and it's about making nature kind of front and center of that. But it all comes back to activity analysis. It all comes back to understanding what the experience, what the occupation is, and how that matches the client or the community or the group or the organization, needs. And yeah, I love kind of exposing people and exposing people to the evidence and information and guidance, but then kind of saying, we can do this. Of course we can do this. And a lot of people are doing it. It's just really nice to pull those people together into a community and have conversations and share what we're doing because it is really powerful.
yes, let's talk about community some more. That's a great topic because I think it's something that you and I know we've had conversations about this before. You and I are both um, entrepreneurs. We have jobs. I don't have a job right now, actually, but we both have businesses, and that can be very lonely. But it doesn't have to be if we are creating community and finding community. Tell me
Mm.
a little bit more about community for you.
I went to a webinar, I'm going to say maybe 2 weeks ago, with my coach who I've been working with for 6 years. And it was about vision. It was about what is your vision for your life? Not purpose, but vision. And we talked about the value of putting yourself amongst different people. If you want something to be different in your life, it is hard. It is hard to make a significant change, to create something, to do something different. And this was my experience without putting yourself amongst different people. And so for me, with the nature stuff, I started this really, I suppose, formally by doing a graduate certificate in permaculture design. So it was a university course and it was intentionally designed to bring people from all these different areas. And so I was there as a health professional. I think there were any other health people. There was a lawyer, there was an industrial designer, there were farmers, there were people from all these different areas. And it was rich in just people's stories and what brought them to, permaculture is about how we live more sustainably on the planet. And there's so many ways into that. And that was my first thing of going, I guess, getting myself out of where I'd been for 25 years and my thinking and knowing that I was drawn there by my intuition, but to actually create something, to create a way of working with my passion, I initially thought I would do research and I wanted to publish and I wanted to share with our profession through publishing. And then I was going to do a YouTube channel, and my husband was going to do all this stuff. And it was like, okay, that's one idea. And then there was this idea. I started talking about nature and people started asking me about it. OT. I wouldn't have got there. And I was very depressed at the time that I started that process and desperately looking for something. I wouldn't have gone anywhere without that first step of putting myself amongst other people. I did a little community course in living sustainably, 6 weeks at a community centre, met other amazing people, teachers, like older community members who were saying like, this is how we used to do this before there was plastic. Um, and you can't, I don't know. I mean, you can go around and around and around in your own head. But for me, the thing that makes the most difference is being connected with people who are thinking differently, know different things, have different skills, have challenged my thinking. I mean, like that's really uncomfortable, but challenge my thinking and, really help me become the kind of person that can do this work. And so I could not do this. I could not do what I'm doing without coaching and without community. And so they're kind of my two things. Like I've had individual coaching to help me get started and a couple of group kind of businessy courses that I love. But then I realize in a group setting, what I do is I get very engaged in what everyone else is doing. I'm trying to help, trying to help. So I've worked out that for me to do what I'm doing, what works best is some individual coaching with someone who can help me think differently and be different and community. And I'm in a number of group coaching programs that give me community. So like I have like OT community because that's really important to me that what I'm doing is occupational therapy and I don't see ever backing away from that. And then I have other kind of business community.
And we're in one together.
Yeah. Yeah. And there we are as OTs in something that's completely not OT. And I love
Yeah.
that. I feel like,
Yeah.
your mother will like person who really understands what I'm feeling.
But it's a cool group of people that think differently. And I think it's so interesting. I find this both in OT communities and outside of OT communities that we get a sense of who we are. Like I feel like it's both expansive and
Mm.
clarifying. And so
Mm.
there's this sense of I can tell more who I am by seeing where I'm not. Oh, I'm
Yeah, I
different
love that.
here. I'm different
Yeah.
there. Like I have this strength that is different from that. And that helps to kind of get that sense of where my
Mm.
boundaries are. But at the same time, it's expansive because you go, oh, I could learn from that. I could
Yeah.
learn from that.
Yeah.
I can expand into that. Oh, I love the way that person describes it. It's not how OTs describe it, and it's so much
Yeah.
clearer.
Yeah. I feel like some of that for me, some of that experience of where are the differences or where's the focus, I feel like some of it for me, and I don't know whether this is a strength or what this is, but I feel like this is an OT thing, that we are very in tune with the experience of the people who we're serving, our customers, our clients, whatever we call them. When we're offering something, I feel like it's very easy for us to put ourselves in that person's shoes and what interacting with us would feel like to them. And I probably trip myself up with that a lot and worry excessively about how am I coming across? I don't want to be too pushy. Like I want people to want to work with me because it feels right for them. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's where that comes from. I feel like part of that is OT, that we're trying to be client centered
Yeah.
and try not to go too far down the hole, trying to be all things to all people, or else we lose what we are and what we're doing. But sometimes I feel like that's a point of difference sometimes, some other communities. Not in a way that I'm saying like we're better than other people, but maybe it's a trap for us. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And we often have to try on other things to see if they do or don't
Yeah.
work. And that's some of the braveness I find, the
Yeah.
courage in trying some of the things that we learn outside of
Yeah.
OT circles is
Yeah.
being, would that work for OT? Because my first thought is no. And then you've got to pause and go, okay, what's the point here? What's the
Yeah.
interpretation? What's the thing I can learn? And can I try that and see if it works?
Mm.
Or does that just feel terrible because it's so not aligned with my values and
Yeah.
with other OTs? Are they going to reject it entirely?
Yeah. It's so interesting, isn't it? So I'm trying to fix my hair. I have done things, probably everyone's done things in the past that they wouldn't repeat. And
Me too.
I probably shouldn't share this, but I'm going to. If you Google me, there's this thing that comes up on Google that I can't get rid of. It's a
I'm
landing
so
page.
curious now.
It's the landing page that I created probably 3 years ago, right? And I cannot get rid of it. I've deleted it. I don't even have the website where it is, but it still shows up on Google.
Wow.
And it's this thing about, like, obviously at one time when I launched my coaching program, I was doing this messaging about create a nature-based service or business in 90 days.
Yeah.
And because you're meant to like give a sense of urgency or whatever.
Mhm.
And like now I'm just like, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested
Yeah.
in that. No one
Yeah.
needs to do anything that quickly. Some people do. But I guess I've learned over sort of the 4 years that I've been doing this work with OTs is that mostly it takes time, you know?
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be smash it out in 90 days.
No.
And so I would love to just get that off Google, but I can't.
I'm
It
not
just
I'm not
reminds me.
finding it, just so you know.
Oh, that's all right. It just reminds me about it's just all progress. It's all progress. It's all refining and understanding people and understanding myself. Like I don't want to be that. And if I don't, I mean, I guess also there's that whole kind of thing when someone says to you, "Oh, you've really changed." And I'm like, I hope so. I hope so. I don't want to be the same person I was a year ago. I ever want to not be learning and changing. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
mm,
That's really good. I think that oh, there's so much wisdom in that, that we get these messages about things being a rush, things being in a hurry. And you and I are in our middle years of our life. And I think that's one thing you learn is both life is short and also what's the hurry? Let's just take
yeah,
this one step at a time. And if it's right, if it's not, something else comes along. And
yeah.
yeah.
It's hard. It's scary though, isn't it?
Mm.
It's scary. And this is kind of, and like I'm a big fan of Brené Brown and it's that whole, the influence of the capitalist world that we live in and what success looks like and feels like. And, what, yeah, to me, there's a big thing about that. Like, what is success and how do you measure that? And I'd love to be in a space where success for me is characterized by feeling calm and peaceful and doing my work, but having all this spaciousness. But it's, you know, I'm not there.
And you need a certain amount of resources to create that.
Yeah, exactly. It's challenging. It's really challenging.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. It's easy to sit in abundance when there is abundance.
Yeah. Correct.
It's a whole other thing that, like, I had a more than 4-month sales slump in my
Mm,
coaching program, which my coaching program's always open. And so that's one of the downsides of having an always cart open
yeah.
program is that, yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes there isn't actually any urgency. And I did that by design. But at the same time, there were 4.5 months of nothing. And it was so
Yeah.
stressful. And I kept wishing for a magic ball, like a magic ball that would tell me when it was going to be over so that I could just enjoy the
Mm.
quiet time. Because when
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
could have
That's
been my
right.
summer off instead of, oh
Exactly.
no, my business is
It's
tanking.
Yeah, I get it. I had this job that I was in and I resigned from it. I resigned from this job when I wanted to go and do something. I felt like I wasn't being a proper OT and that I really should get myself amongst other OTs because I've almost always worked in isolation. So I quit my job and I went to work for a business that was all OTs. And then I also resigned from there and went and did forest therapy training. But in that process, I've lost track of my things. I've lost track of what I was going to say. It's a menopause moment. I'll just embrace it. I've completely lost track of what I was going to say. Sorry.
I was talking about sales slump and enjoying my summer off.
Oh yeah, thank you. So, the only way I could quit that job was because I had already signed a contract to start back in the same job 4 months later.
Mm.
Like, I was terrified of this idea of not having a job. And in Australia, we have like long service leave. So it's different in different states, but if you work for either 7 or 10 years in a job, you get 3 months paid leave.
Mhm.
And I had resigned from a job after 9.5 years. And I just thought, I'm never going to get a big break. And this was my break. And, but I could not have done that. Certainty is so big for me, financial certainty. So yeah, anyway, I managed to create that to give myself a break. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, you can't enjoy it if you're worried
Mm.
about what's next.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. That reminds me, I've been hearing about the concept of a midlife sabbatical.
Oh,
And I
sounds
think
ideal.
we should all do it. It's like the gap year
Yeah.
after high school or something, right? And I think it's something that everybody could use some time to just unhook from the whole rat race
What
and
would you
just
do?
find yourself.
What would you
Oh,
do?
there would have to be enough money for me to do all
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
things I'm watching.
Cool.
I would love to travel. I would love to
Oh,
get
you're a traveler. Of course you are.
yes, I'd come see you. Maybe I would do a tour of all the OTs I've met around the world
Yeah.
and go traveling and camping and spend time outdoors and read books because it just
Yeah.
feels
Read.
I can't even focus on reading anymore.
Yeah. Same.
Just to that slow down and be with myself
Yeah.
and off social media and like I love connection, but it becomes a bit of a burden when it's
Mhm.
required for marketing for your business. It
Yes.
can
Yeah.
feel like, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so it would be nice to disconnect, get outdoors, see the world, and
Mm.
yeah, I miss that. My kids are teenagers, and so I'm very aware that is not very far off. My eldest will be going to university next year, and
Yeah.
my youngest will be starting high school. And you have an adult son.
It's my son's
Yeah.
birthday today. He's 26. It makes me feel so old. He's half my age. Oh, no, I'm nearly 52. And he left home when he was 18, turned to 18, left to another state, to the army, like not even allowed to
Wow.
communicate with him for ages.
Oh,
And he will never live. I don't see him ever living in the state that we live. He is just moving further and further away to other parts of Australia. And it's what he should be doing. He should be creating his life and following his heart and following his love and his passion. But it's precious. It's precious. Yes. But that's, that is life. That is change. And I think that's why it's so important to find our own passions and create the life that it changes over time. Yeah, like it's just life stages, isn't it? But to create ways of living that actually feel good, not just working, but actually living. I'm really reactive to the term work-life balance. Like, I'm
me
really
too. I hate it. Oh, skin crawls. Yes.
life. It's all life, right?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
life.
It's all life.
Um,
Work is a part of life. It's one of
yes,
our occupations.
yeah,
Two of our
exactly. And it's
occupations
really
rather.
important.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't want to kind of like sugarcoat it, but because there are times that are really hard. There are times in life that are really hard and everything feels hard. And I kind of I don't want to be in a space where that's not okay. Like, it's that whole holism thing. Like, it's all part of life. And I think when things are hard and we feel like that's not part of it, part of life, like we feel like we need to find a way out of it. Like, sometimes, like, I've just been through this whole month of medical chaos, right? And part of how I get through the fear of all that is just, this is just part of it. It probably will be okay. The evidence would tell me mostly in my life it has been okay. And if it's not okay, then maybe that's the journey. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's just like, what is being whole? It's accepting that all of it is part of life. And then that just focuses me on why it's so important to find the good when that's possible. Because I'm really prone to just pushing, pushing, pushing. And not pausing and reflecting and going, is this what I want to be doing? Is this what feels good in my heart and in my body?
I feel like it's such a dichotomy knowing you. And you and I have had a lot of deep conversations over the years. And I'm always fascinated by that knowledge when you share it that no, like my nature is to push, push, push. Yet when I speak to you, I hear this very grounded and aware and connected individual who also by default will push. And so it feels a little bit polar to me.
It feels like that to me too. Yeah, I get it. I know. It's hard. It's hard. And this, like, we're not going to go deep into this here, but this is the whole trauma response. I had cancer when I was 28 with a 2-year-old and an 8-month-old baby, and I absolutely thought I was going to die. I had high risk breast cancer that had spread beyond my breast. I probably should not be here,
Yeah.
and it's very difficult for me. I feel like that has changed me really
Sure.
deeply. And that is, you know, it's like that should be my lesson to slow down and be kind to myself and nurture myself and give my body what it needs to be healthy. But there's this other level of that absolutely has pushed me into what if my life's limited? How can I do all the things I desperately want to do? Like, I don't feel pressured to do all the things. I genuinely want to do all these
Yeah.
things I'm doing.
Yeah.
And now I don't feel so much that my life, is going to be cut short necessarily. Although last week I did, but it's just become my default, my nervous system default, and it's quite hard to change that. Like a trauma, it's quite hard to change that. So I can be all those things. I can push hard, and I can be calm and lie in my hammock.
I think we've sent each other hammock pictures before.
Yes, yeah.
What do you do? Like, how do you use nature? Use nature sounds wrong.
No, but how do I
Partner with
be? How do I be
how
in nature?
when you notice yourself in that frazzled state, what are your go-tos? How do you engage and partner with
It's
nature?
different at different times. Like, absolutely lying in the hammock has been really a big thing for probably 2 years. And I used to spend a few hours in the hammock every weekend. This is at our property in the bush. In the last 12 months, I planted a lawn. I've been trying to grow this lawn where the hammock hangs, and so I haven't even put the hammock up, and it's interesting. It depends where I'm at, I feel like, in my nervous system. Like, at the moment, I more need to move, and so I will walk. So, like, my husband and I, we have this little, like, it's a walking route because we don't really have paths at our place. We have to push through undergrowth. So I'll walk, I'll go and sit at our river. But I like to need movement. Either I need to move or I need to be seeing movement. So I quite like lying on the ground looking at clouds moving. I quite like sitting at the river watching the water move. And I like walking along the river. So I'm moving. And yeah, at the moment, they're my things that help me feel calmer.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Not actually doing things. Like, I'm doing lots of weeding and stuff, but that doesn't, I don't feel better after that.
No, I feel better
Time.
after weeding. There's a sense of it's a repetitive productivity where you can see the progress and it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that felt good." And
Not that
often
I like weeding, but we've got 80
you have
acres.
a lot, yes.
It's hard to see progress. Yeah, so at the moment it's movement, but it changes and I'm open to change.
Mhm. So you it sounds
Yeah,
like you tune in and notice what your
okay.
body's craving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, it's very snowy here.
Oh,
We got snow very early this year and it's
yeah, I heard.
stayed. Yes, but, yeah, and actually, I think that was where bringing the plants I bought the plants the one year where I had got so much from my outdoor garden that year that
Yeah.
it was just, "How am I going to replace that in my life?" And bringing an indoor garden really helped. But, yeah, I think that there's often that sort of well, actually, sometimes I have to go against my body's, "No, you want to lay on the couch." And
Yeah.
it's beautiful outside and the sun is setting, and I
Yeah.
have to kind of talk myself into going outdoors,
Yeah.
and the hammock is nice, it's grounding, it's a place to be rather than
Yeah.
feeling a bit unanchored and standing in the middle of the yard uncertain,
Yeah.
uneasy. Sometimes that's important too.
Yeah. 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 I think you're right though. It's the intuition and it's that sense of being guided to where your body wants to be or your soul wants to be. And that changes. That changes. We do not have the contrasts of weather that you have.
Mm.
Um, they're really, I mean, we have just had actually sort of the biggest flooding in 10 years in Adelaide. Our river flooded, which was really
Oh.
exciting, but there's really no days that you wouldn't go outside here. Like, it's very mild. So when I hear about the snow and, oh, let's do a snowshoeing program, I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool.
They say, actually, I was reading my son's outdoor, he has a winter camping trip coming up next month, and I need to go with
Ah,
him because of his medical needs. And okay, yeah, we can do that. And one of the lines on there is, "There's no bad weather, only bad
oh,
clothing."
bad
Or
corn.
yeah. Yep. But then when it's
Yep.
-40 and all the children's toes are freezing, then it actually isn't ideal.
No, nice. Yes, we just don't really have those experiences here.
No. So if OTs out there listening want to find more community around nature and learning more about getting in touch with nature themselves or as OTs, how can they connect with you? What would you recommend?
Yeah, so I'm like a big girl now, and I've got like an actual website. It's half built, but no. So the best place to connect, if you're on Facebook, is my Facebook, like my free Facebook group, Nature OTs Connect and Grow,
Okay.
and
We'll put a link in the show notes for that
yeah,
too.
I really want that to be a place where people share what they're doing because I don't think this is just a particularly OT thing, but we love to see what other people are doing. And I love it when people share their websites or their programs or what they're doing in nature because it's so creative. There's an OT in my group who a while ago she shared, she's in the UK and she's got a van, right? She's got this van and she drives around and she does things outside with people. So I love it when people share what they're doing in that group. If you're not on Facebook, I'm sorry, that is predominantly where I am, but I totally respect people for not being there. And so I have got a website where I'm starting to kind of put things on there, really just showing what I'm doing, what I offer for OTs, what I offer for, like I've got a program for anyone for Nature Connection that I offer to general public.
Mhm.
Um, and, I'm adding in more things there about the actual work that I'm doing with forest bathing, with like nature-based retreats. So out of my whole medical kind of situation, my GP practice, my local doctor has booked a whole day nature retreat for her team. So
Mm.
she's shutting down her practice and she's got some of their specialist doctors who consult.
Mm.
I think there's 17 people coming to our place for a day in nature. So I'm
Cool.
doing those kind of things as well on my website, which is work.natureot.com.au for
Okay.
Australia.
Okay. Awesome. That's wonderful. Thank you. I have 3 questions, 3 closing questions for you.
Yeah.
What does being brave mean to you?
Um, I think for me at the moment, it means knowing what serves me, knowing the kind of way I want to do OT and feeling confident about that and putting that out to the world. And so I've done lots of reading and thinking about what is our profession? What is the basis of our profession and how can we work in like for me, how can I work outside the health system, the disability system? How can I work where people are? And so I feel brave pushing into this wellness tourism thing, pushing into, I've just become a state rep for an association called Outdoor Health Australia. So putting myself outside the profession, sharing what occupational therapy can be and is, feels brave to me,
Mhm.
feel pioneering,
And it sounds
but
like
supported.
it's really grounded in that foundation. The first part you said was sort of knowing yourself and knowing how you wanted to be showing up. So these are your values. And from that
Mm.
place of being aligned with your values, anything you do is the right thing.
My values and the profession's values. Like I could not be an OT. I could be doing all the same things I'm doing, not as an OT, but it's really important to me. And I feel like it's really valid for our profession to be showing what's possible for OT in different systems.
I like that.
And when I feel really unsure about that, I check in with OT leaders. I present at conferences and I talk to OT leaders who have all said to me, no, this is great, go for it. And I'm like, okay, I've got permission. um, yeah. So it feels brave to be
Yeah.
rogue, I guess, on the
Yeah.
edge,
Yeah. Yeah. Very good.
but exciting too, really exciting.
What do you want to see OTs being a little bit more brave about in the next couple of years?
I think around um, being confident about working holistically that and I work with OTs in lots of different countries, and so I really see the differences between different countries, and I think Canada and Australia is pretty aligned with
I think so
um,
too.
our systems and funding and things. I certainly feel in other countries there's kind of more constraints around our scope of practice. So I would love OTs to really connect with what is our scope of practice? What can we do if we
And scope
actually
of
just
practice isn't defined by funders. This is
yeah,
scope.
exactly. Yeah, so exactly. If we actually just set all that structural stuff aside and go back to what is occupational therapy? What are the basic premise, values,
Yes.
evidence about engagement in meaningful, purposeful occupation? And for me, nature being the optimal environment for function. And what else could we do? Actually just be creative in our thinking to move the profession into different places. Like for me, I've always worked in employment. I've always worked for large employers, sitting in human resources or safety teams. And I love it because I am where the people are. And I feel like, oh, well, I can influence the organization around that. So, yeah, I would love OTs to be brave about talking about working at organization population levels, as well as working with individuals. So we have so much wisdom in what it takes to be well and to flourish in life. And we need to talk about that together. Like we can't all just, like I would love that to be a more solid direction for OT.
Mhm. I feel like we could have that conversation for an hour.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And you've alluded to it when you were answering the first question, but what's something really brave you've done recently?
It's about for me, it's about I'm not sure how to put this into words. It's kind of about showing up and sticking with it despite the doubt.
Mm.
Yeah, despite the uncertainty. I think it's about getting clearer about what I need to support me to do the work I'm doing. So when I'm filled with self doubt or, oh my God, I don't really know if what I'm doing is helping anyone, to go back to intentionally have processes about how do I get myself on track with my own self-belief. That's the stuff that feels hard. Like I could easily just walk away,
Yeah.
probably 30% of the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And I loved how you were talking a lot about confidence earlier and normalizing self-doubt because
Mm.
self-doubt um, is a normal response when you're trying new things and being brave.
Mm.
That self-doubt isn't the confidence isn't the absence of self-doubt. Bravery isn't the absence of self-doubt. It's knowing that that's going to come along and we
That's
need to
part
keep
of it.
moving. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I just want to say this at the end that the pathway to something new is not more information, more knowledge, more
No.
training, more certification. It's not more. It is the self-belief. It is the connecting with what we already know, what we already believe, what skills and strengths we already have. Um, and it's the thinking work. It's the soul work that is what helps people do things differently. It's really, I mean, like I obviously talk about information and processes and evidence and all that, but that's not the stuff that gets in the way of people doing new
No,
brave things.
no,
It's the
but they often
self-belief.
think they think it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it feels easy. It's like, oh, I'll just do this course. I'll just do this, whatever. But that's not the stuff. It's the self-belief. And that's where I think the community and the connection and the conversation and having people to challenge our thinking
Yeah.
is what makes a difference. To be
Yes.
brave.
Yes. 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 And because it's that, I find that having that community helps us, somebody else point mirroring back that, no, you've got, this
Yeah.
is the things you needed to hear that you actually know.
Reassurance.
Yeah, it's a reminder
Yeah.
of what you already know. And that
Yeah.
can allow you to get out of your head enough to get into action. And from that action, you're going to find more confidence and be able to take that next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say that's why this has kind of just helped clarify this for me. That's why what I do in my coaching program when I work with OTs, it's coaching. Like it's not, here's the program, 10 steps, follow this, implement. It may or may not work in your context. It is coaching, it's conversation, it's what's important to you, who are your people, what do they need, what's your nature, what's your system, and how do you create something that feels joyful? It's not like, here's a done for you, best of luck. Because I love OTs and I want to know what is important to them
Mhm.
um, about me.
That's beautiful. Love it. Love it. Now you had some, yes, those
And I get,
little
I
dandelions.
picked these wishes for us. But I'm not sure what I'm wishing for. I'm going to go outside and blow them to make more dandelions in my lawn. I just love these. I found these vases in my dad's shed when he passed away. And yeah, I'm just going to blow a wish for us both.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I
In fact,
appreciate
I'm not.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just going to blow it and what comes, comes.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and for being you and being a part of my community. We're in each other's community, right?
Yeah.
We've had these conversations from time to time. We're in multiple communities together, and I so appreciate your vibe. I appreciate what you
Oh,
bring to
same.
the table.
Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy the snow.
Now, I don't know if you took note of it or not, but both Bronwyn and I have invested in our personal and professional development, and we continue to do so. We both invest in coaching and community to support our growth personally and professionally. In addition to receiving coaching, we give a lot of coaching. So you can find both Bronwyn and I on Facebook. And if you'd like to talk to me about what working together might look like, please reach out. I will include a link in the show notes to be able to book a quick chat with me. Let's just get to know each other. If you're enjoying the Brave OT podcast, I sure would appreciate it if you would give it a review and maybe share an episode with a friend or two. Thanks for listening.